This is my analysis of how a ClearClick Video2Digital Converter 2.0 captures interlaced video and produces a progressive video file. It's not a deinterlacing as other things would do, in the sense of merging both fields into a single frame. It captures them one after another. So imagine this graph paper is showing a TV screen. You've got, in my country, which uses PAL video, a 25 frame per second signal and a 55 field per second. Okay, make that frame. Interlaced video in the old days, the camera would scan from the top of the screen down to the bottom, line by line. So the first line of video would be scanned, and then the third line, and then the fifth line, and then the seventh line, all the way down to the bottom of the screen. Then it would start back up at the top, and you'd record. The camera would scan the second line, the fourth line, the sixth line, the eighth line, all the way down to the bottom. So the first field we call the odd field because it starts on line 1. The second field we call the even field because it starts on line 2. And while the camera is doing this scanning business, your cathode ray tube TV set would be scanning across the picture tube in the exact same fashion. So as the camera is scanning here, the cathode ray tube is scanning that same point. Once digital television came in, some things worked in the same way. They scan a whole line at a time, working their way down. Some of them would input the entire frame and then scan that frame in memory. The difference between the two methods is if something moves across the screen with a scanned image, you'll see it diagonally streak one way or another. If the entire frame is captured at once, well, you'll get a nice still picture. Now, this capture device inputs the analog video in the same fashion, line by line, line 1, line 3, line 5, line 7, then lines all the way down to the bottom, then lines 2, lines 4, line 6. But what it does is dump them into memory in an interesting, clever way. So we'll draw another screen. When it's capturing line 1 of field 1, it'll capture and store it across two lines. So it'll capture into lines 1 and 2. When line 3 comes in, it'll capture that into lines 3 and 4. When line 5 comes in, it'll capture that into lines 5 and 6. And it'll do this until field 1 has filled an entire frame of progressive video. Now this will be 1/50th of a second. Then, when the next field comes in, so this will be field 2, field 2 will, line 2 will come in, and that will be captured across two lines again. So maybe it's 2 and 3. When line 4 comes in, that'll be captured across two lines, so that could be 4 and 5. And when line 6 comes in, that comes across two lines, and that could be line 6 and 7. Now keep doing that all the way down to the bottom of the screen. And again, this is 1/50th of a second. What those two, these are a progressive frame, so that's an entire frame, and that's a whole frame. But the contents of each frame is only one field at a time. Now when you play this back, if you hit pause, I'll go back to the original one. If you hit pause on this, because there is a time of delay of a 50th of a second between field 1 and field 2, anything that's moved, say somebody threw a ball across the screen, on field 1 it'll be here, and on field 2 it'll move a bit further and be here. And when you hit pause, you'll see them two flickering backwards and forwards on top of each other. That's what you'd get with the old VHS machines when you hit pause, unless they had a special trick play head which ignored the second field and replayed the same field twice, or it had a frame store that would actually store the image from one field and then play back that stored image instead of continuously playing back from the video head as it scanned the field. Anyway, now if we go back to here, on this field, on this progressive frame taken from field 1, that thrown ball would be here, and you get a perfectly still image. It's only half the video resolution as this one, because it's made up from line 1, line 3, line 5. So it looks a bit chunky, but it's perfectly still. When you get onto the second field, that ball had moved a bit further over, so still image would be perfectly still without any judder, and perfectly in time, so you can get a nice still. But what happens when you play it back normally, you'll see field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, and you'll see that ball move across the image. But because the input signals are sort of, well, this is taken from line 1, line 3, line 5, and this one's taken from line 2, line 4, line 6. There'll be a slight wobble up and down of any fine detail. Now, if your original picture source was a little bit soft focus from a domestic camcorder that had a tube or an early CCD device, you won't notice that because it's doesn't have a high resolution picture. But if you had, say, computer graphics or a broadcast TV camera with a really good lens, that may be obvious. It's going to depend on what you're playing it back on. Your TV set can do various tricks to process incoming signal and hide flutter. One thing you will not be able to hide is if there's, say, a brightness change between field 1 and field 2, such as you are filming with stroboscopic lights, or as the video recorder recorded it, one of the heads was a bit bad, or it scratched the tape, so field 1 and field 2 look physically different. Then you'll see that flutter during playback. But it's a clever trick of not de-interlacing video the way some other things do. What they'll do, they'll actually merge together lines 1 and 3. They'll merge together lines 1 and 2 into one overall composite of those two lines. Then they'll merge lines 3 and 4 and sort of blur them together, and what you get with that is a very definite reduction in vertical resolution. It also can make a mess of motion because you get those two timing things on top of each other, and if they process it even further, sometimes they can try and fake the differences between the two of them, but it's all messy. And we're stuck with this process because this was how analog television was done. Modern TV sets, even if you can put an analog signal into them, the screen is progressive. Internally it has to convert it, and some of them are better at it than others. Now, with this device's capture method, because you've caught field 1 as field 1 and turned it into frame, and field 2 as field 2 and turned it into a whole frame, field 3, field 4, etc., it is possible to get back the original interlaced video because you can process this progressive frame and only take the signal from lines 1, 3, 5, 7, so on, and then process the second frame and only take the lines from 2, 4, 6, and so on, and separate them, and you can get the original interlaced video back. It does require, I'd say it probably requires computer processing. There might be some hardware devices that do that, but I doubt anybody's bothered to make anything. There'd be a very limited market for that. That's more or less what that device appears to do. And if you say you'd captured video from a telecine device, you probably won't see that vertical flicker that I was saying, because most telecine devices were designed to try and make a nice smooth frame without any judder. And this is in the broadcast side of things, and in the domestic side of things, you probably don't have a high resolution film to start off with, and you don't have high resolution optics either, so they sort of blur together a bit, and you shouldn't notice that sort of thing. But yeah, when you play back this, you'd get a perfect still. Normal playback, you'll get that motion judder, and slow motion, you'll get the same thing, because you'll see that, I'll do another frame. You'll see that frame 1 uses that spot, and frame 2 sort of uses that spot, and frame 3 uses that spot, and frame 4 uses that spot. As if I'm talking about the same idea of a ball being thrown across the screen, it's a bit higher, it's a bit low, it's a bit higher, it's a bit lower, and you'll see it do that frame by frame. And you can sometimes see that on slow motion television replay of sporting events, depending on whether they captured interlaced video cameras in the first place, or if they shot everything in progressive, which is what they tend to do these days. So they get you nice, each frame is completely a full picture. It's not dependent on the previous frame before it.